Well, this is from shakers to shares, the art of viral mixology. Kudos to ChatGPT for coming up with that one. But for real though, I think it's so great. I mean, these three people I admire it very, very much. They are so much more than just somebody who knows how to make a fabulous drink, and I think it is an art form to know how to actually curate a cocktail that people absolutely fawn over. You've already heard two of them speak today about how they utilize social media and other digital platforms to be able to tell stories. And I think that's another element, right? We're not just creating cocktails. There is an actual story here, whether it's behind the brand, behind the sustainability initiative behind that, which Natalia, I see you over there, and we'll definitely get into all of that. So this is gonna be a great moment for us to just talk about that. And those are the pieces that then allow us to go viral, to have a brand that goes viral and all the really great things. So before we formally kick off, do each of you want to share sort of your background, where you're coming from anybody who might have just walked in?
Yeah. You want to start, Josh?
Yeah, sure. What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? My name is Josh. Drifters join on Instagram and other socials as well. Originally from New York, but raised in the beautiful state of California most of my life. So a bartender by trade. Was doing bartending in the last maybe 4 or 5 years or so. And now I do more content online, but it's great. I love it. There's nothing like hospitality and connecting with people all over the world. So yeah.
Amen. And how about hospitality at home?
Yeah. What's going on, y'all? My name is Elliot. I go by apartment bartender online. Been in the game for about 10 years. I had mentioned earlier that I've never been a bartender by trade. Started in sales at a software company. Fell in love with spirits and cocktails, and so kind of been diving down that rabbit hole for the past 10 years. And so kind of what I do now is just more on the creative director side. Have a creative studio just outside of Denver where I'm based. I am wholeheartedly a suburban dad, so living that life, as well as doing the creative work. So do a lot of photo video production for premium spirit brands, and then also just a really big cocktail nerd. So a lot of what I do is just seeking to make drinks at home approachable for people, so that they can have really great moments of connection with, their friends, their family and stuff. And so, I'll dive into the drink. I'll pass it over to you, but yeah, that's what I do.
Natalia.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. My name is Natalia Faustino. I am the assistant general manager and beverage manager at Little St. Healdsburg. And I've been there for the last couple of years. Our beverage program is very focused on sustainability. We do have our own farm, which is 5 minutes away from our restaurant, so we're super lucky. And we are super into sustainability and how we can reduce waste and make a sustainable bar. So yeah, thanks for being here.
So super excited for all three of them to show you how they creatively approach creating a cocktail when they're working with the brand. So in our conversations, as we were trying to come up with this entire concept, I was like, all right, Joshua, I'm gonna give you gin. Kudos also to Remy Martin for being a huge sponsor, as well as Tequila Dos Angeles Caídos. And so we've got the Botanist gin that we're working out with Joshua, and then Elliot is going to be working out with Tequila Dos Angeles Caídos, and then we also have the Remy 1738, again courtesy of our wonderful sponsors. And the one key thing that I gave them, I was like, I want you to give me a cocktail that works with Cafecito de Guatemala. And that is your key ingredient. I don't care what cocktail you make, but that's the whole point of everything that they do, right? Is telling the stories of the brands, the spirits they're working with. And I wanted to add one additional component to that, which was you all have to have the same base key ingredient, and let's see what you do with that. Because that's the fun part about cocktail making, right? If you go to a bar and you're like, make me something fruity, or what's the weirdest request that you've ever seen from somebody DM you that's related to cocktails?
Related to cocktails. Fair. Man, it's usually just about like some liqueur that they have, and it's been on their shelf for 12 years, and they're like, what do I do with this? And it's something just like hyper sweet. Yeah, basically.
Okay, perfect.
But I don't feel like the ingredient requests are too crazy.
Okay, well, that's a good thing. But obviously we can do a lot of things with a lot of different ingredients. So I'm going to kick it off with you, Elliot. When I tasked you with, well, you selected Los Angeles Tequilas, which is amazing and I love, really great brand. They're going to be at the grand tasting later, so be sure to try them. But then I tasked you with the coffee beans. Like, where does your mind go, one, when you're working with a brand and being able to tell a story? Because, right, we're using social media for marketing purposes. You talked about ads earlier. Where are you going with the storytelling of the brand? And then when I gave you the cafecito, I mean, I immediately thought espresso martinis, and none of you chose espresso martinis. So I'm impressed by that alone.
Well, great question. So for me, when I started, and I want to provide some context, and this is kind of where my brain goes. When I went to one of my first cocktail bars, it was the first time I had an old fashioned, first time I had seen a big clear cube of ice. Which I'm a really big ice snob, and just a nerd for really good ice. But when I had that old fashioned, that is like the drink that I fell in love with. I love a good spirit forward cocktail. And then when I went home and looked up all the ingredients, I realized, I can actually make this. It was like one of the first drinks that I felt empowered to be able to recreate at home. And so that has been like something that I've been really passionate about when making drinks. And so for me, being a home bartender and not one that's been in the trade, like I've been really inspired by just the classics, right? And so how I approach drinks when I'm working with the brand, like Tequila Dos Angeles, is like I want to, one, pay respect to the spirit. When it's a really good spirit and it's the base of the cocktail that you're making, there's not a ton of ingredients that you have to add on top of that. It really then just becomes a game of layers or just flavors that you're incorporating into it. So with a classic like an old fashioned, for example, which is kind of a bit of a riff that I'm going to create here, where my brain goes is one, like, what is the spirit, right? And so if it's a quality spirit here using the Tequila Dos Angeles Reposado, I lean into what's the flavor profile of that spirit. Another thing that I really lean into is the seasons that we find ourselves in, right? So for me, I really lean into prominent flavors like that are prominent in winter and fall. So you get like vanilla, you get chocolate, you get coffee, you get pomegranate, and whatever flavors that you can find at the grocery store, right? It being in Denver, if you go to the grocery store like in January, they're not going to have peaches, right? So it doesn't really make sense to get fruits or ingredients that you can't really find in that season. And so that's kind of where my brain goes, is really wanting to lean into the moments, the season, the flavors that are prominent in that time frame, and also moments. Like I love a good spirit and love a good drink on my own, but I really do believe that a great drink has the ability to create connection and camaraderie amongst you and your friends and stuff. So I always love the holidays and gatherings. And so that's what this cocktail really is. It's a drink that it's called the Fireside Chat. It has a really great spirit that, one, if you're going to a holiday gathering, you can actually bring the bottle. You can just enjoy it on its own. You can enjoy it on ice. You can also do this cocktail. You can batch this cocktail, bring it to your gathering. And so like this drink, again, is really built for the holidays, really built for the winter, and it is an easy, approachable drink. So I'm going to start off with Tequila Dos Angeles. Here, again, I'm using the Reposado. So you get notes of vanilla and oak and cinnamon and a little chocolate, So like, again, this drink is meant to kind of warm the bones a little bit, especially being in Denver. You have, snow, which we got our first snow like a few weeks ago, which is crazy. It was like a little blizzard we got. And so drinks like this are really great for cold winter days or holiday gatherings. So in terms of the ingredient, like Gabriela was saying, I did not want to just go for the espresso martini, which I love a good espresso martini, wakes you up, gets the party going. But I feel like it's the one drink that you kind of think about when you think coffee right away. And so I wanted to do something a little different. I think when it comes to coffee, there's only a certain amount of things that you can do with it, right? But I really lean into coffee liqueur. It's one of my favorite ingredients to utilize in a cocktail because I think a little bit goes a long way. And so it just really elevates anything that you're doing. So here using Mr. Black, which is a really great coffee liqueur. And I think that's another thing that my brain goes to, right? If you're making a cocktail you want to incorporate ingredients that are quality. I don't, other than like tropical cocktails, heavy rum tiki cocktails and stuff like that, I don't really think that you need a ton of ingredients to really make a drink shine. I think it's more about the spirits that you're using. And so I really lean towards like fewer ingredient cocktails, which again are more approachable for people at home if they want to recreate that. So here just gonna be doing a 1/4 ounce. And again, a little goes a long way with this one.
Can you eye that? Are you that good now where you don't even need the jigger?
No, I love using a jigger just because it like allows you to be consistent and stuff. If I'm free pouring, then we're past the point in the holiday party that people care.
Your free pours though are always on point.
Yeah, real bartender, home bartender,
Apartment bartender.
apartment bartender. It's actually kind of a funny story how that name came to be. I was with a buddy of mine and we were celebrating, had a few too many Negronis one night. And I was like, I don't even know why I call myself a home bartender. I live in a shitty apartment. And he's like, dude, you're an apartment bartender. And so I ended up changing my Instagram handle. This was early on. This was 2015 when I had started. I woke up the next morning. I thought it was really dumb. And he's like, you have no followers anyway. Like, no one cares. And then sure enough, it like became a thing that I feel like it resonates with people, right? Because when I started living in an apartment, wasn't trying to turn this into a business or anything, but I think what I found in that name was a community of people that really like a great drink at home, that really like hospitality at home. So the last ingredient I incorporated there was a vanilla syrup. I'm going to be adding some bitters. So just a couple dashes. So when I'm building a drink, again, this is not a complicated cocktail. This is a really easy drink to make. Just add a little ice. And typically with a shake, I ask people, this is the point when you clap, but I'm gonna stir, so I'm gonna say it again. This is the point when y'all clap for me. Thank you. Appreciate that. So again, a stirred cocktail is my favorite. This is a drink I call Fireside Chat. Just gonna add a cube of ice. And when I'm making drinks at home, I'm huge on presentation. I think when you're doing drinks for your friends and your family, that's what you want. You want a little bit of that wow factor. What you want is to make your spot feel like a bar. And so that's kind of what I'm going for. So here, just strain the drink out. And then we are going to garnish with an orange peel and some fresh grated dark chocolate. Now, these things are my worst enemy.
How many times have you cut yourself on one of those?
Probably like twice, but I typically don't use wide peelers for that reason. I feel like it only takes 1 or 2 times where you're like, I don't really mess with these things anymore. So just go ahead and express a little orange. I'm going to get a better peel. Can I use your pairing right there?
And as you're thinking about crafting cocktails, like why orange?
That's a great question. I mean, I think in terms of a classic old fashioned, an orange peel is just a typical garnish. But with this cocktail, I think when it comes to garnishes, you want to, thank you, sir. When it comes to garnish, you want to do something that pairs well with the ingredients in the cocktail, right? So orange goes really well with chocolate, goes really well with coffee, goes really well with cinnamon and vanilla. And so I think it pairs really nicely with tequila dos Angeles, like the reposado especially. And also that's why I'm going to incorporate some dark chocolate as well. So again, I think a drink, 1, is never done until it's garnished, but 2, whatever the garnish you choose, you want to make sure that complements the other ingredients in the cocktail. So just some fresh grated dark chocolate on top. And again, this is a really simple cocktail. You guys have the recipe on the recipe card. This is something that's easily batched in a larger amount. This is something that you can take to your holiday gatherings. It's a great dessert cocktail after a big meal, which I'm notorious for. We're all notorious for during the holidays, is eating way too much. But this is a really great dessert cocktail that you can make. And again, just to recap my brain, I like to make drinks that are really approachable for people. I don't necessarily build them to go viral, but I think that is what makes them so approachable and so easy, is that you have all the ingredients at your local grocery store or liquor store that you can pick up to make something like this. So Salud. Cheers, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because the thing that literally is fearful and dreadful for me is if I see something that has like 10 things and I'm like, oh my gosh, I already don't know what I'm doing. So definitely don't want to do that. But this, last night we were in the room pre-batching everything and I had a taste of that, especially with the dark chocolate on top. And I was like, this could get dangerous very quickly.
Yeah.
Fireside chats become conversations like pillow talk, and then we're somewhere way different. What does everyone think about the cocktail? Yeah, we like that? Fantastic. I love it. All right. What do we got going on over here? Drifter's Joint.
Sweet. Yeah. I mean, so using coffee as well. And what's fun about coffee is that first, a lot of people drink it around the world, right? It's one of those unique things that people drink in many countries, but it's also a versatile ingredient. So just like how Elliot was doing with the old fashioned, in this case, I'm doing a Negroni, which is a popular cocktail. A lot of people order Negronis. But the simple infusion of coffee gives it just like a little layer of depth. And it just shows you how easy it is. So for when you're mixing cocktails at home, maybe making certain things, it's easy just to do a simple infusion that will change the profile and taste of the cocktail a little bit, maybe add something unique to something that you've already had. So for this, I go with a gin. We're using Botanist today, which is a really good gin. So if you're into gin cocktails and you're at the bar and you see gin in the back bar, Botanist is a good one to go with. It's nice, botanical, but it's also very dry, which is nice for gin because that means you can use it in martini, like a martini. You can use it in, a gin and tonics. So very versatile in that sense. So a Negroni itself is very easy to make. It's 3 ingredients and it's all equal parts for the most part. So in this case, I'm going to go with 1 ounce of Botanist gin into our glass. And if you want it to be a little bit more gin forward, you can always add like 1.25 ounces. And just to make the gin pop a little more. Some people do that. And then for the Campari, this is what I infuse with coffee bean. So on the recipe card that you'll see there is instructions on how to infuse. But I always say if you infuse Campari with coffee bean, leave it at least for 24 hours overnight. But the longer you infuse it with coffee bean, whole bean, the more coffee flavor you're going to get. And what's nice about the coffee is that it softens the bitterness of the Campari a bit, because a lot of people don't like Campari. They're like, it's too bitter. I don't like it in cocktails like Negronis because it's too bitter. So coffee is one ingredient that kind of softens it a little bit. So you're going to get some of that coffee flavor, but alongside with the Campari. So again, 24 hours is a good time, but you can leave it for 48, 72 to impart a stronger coffee flavor. And I infuse it with whole bean. And then once I finish the infusion, I just strain out the whole bean and discard, and then just, bottle this back up. So again, 1 ounce, and then sweet vermouth to balance out the cocktail with a little sweetness. And for those that know, right, vermouth is a fortified wine. So
Didn't know.
Oh, you didn't know? Well,
Didn't know.
Now you know.
This is a noob over here.
So in the wine family, but it's a base for, not a base, but it's an ingredient for many spirit-forward cocktails, including this one, the Negroni. Manhattan's another popular one that uses sweet vermouth as well. So there you have it. You just have 3 ounces of that. And then what we're going to do is just ice this up real quick.
When I tasked you with creating this cocktail and you went Negroni, is that just like your favorite cocktail, or why did you choose to do a clap and Negroni?
I did it because it's a popular cocktail, and on social media, like a lot of people are, when they're looking for recipes and stuff, they look for something popular, something that they already are familiar with. But they don't always want what's already, like just an ordinary old-fashioned Negroni. Sometimes they want a twist, maybe something they've had at a bar or whatnot. So coffee Negroni is one of those where I've done before on my page, and a lot of people enjoy it because, first of all, they didn't know that you can do an infusion that simple and that easy. But at the same time, that coffee can be a versatile ingredient when it comes to making cocktails. Mm-hmm. So with this, super easy. Again, like if you were to buy these 3 things, make it at home, easy.
We'll show you some love. We'll show you some love.
I always say support your local bars, right, when you go out. But if you don't want to spend, if $18, $19, what a cocktail goes for these days, you know, and you want to, you know, try bartending at home. This is like a good way to, you know, kind of start learning a little bit here and there, and experimenting. So let me see. Oh, yeah, we're going to do big ice. And when you stir like a cocktail like this, you know, 25, 30 seconds is pretty good. So you add a bit of dilution, but you don't over dilute the cocktail. So you're still going to get a nice kind of boozy flavor. You're going to taste all those ingredients, but it's not going to be super watered down.
It's a fancy strainer. What's that called?
Oh, this is like a scallop. I bought this at online. It's like a scallop in the form of a scallop. So scallop shell. So yeah, so there you have it. You have a Negroni, and then typically Negronis are garnished like old fashions. They're garnished with a orange peel, and the orange peel again is going to layer nicely with the coffee flavor and with the boozy forward notes like the gin, sweet vermouth. And then the peel, obviously, we do this, you know, kind of, you might see bartenders kind of doing this around the glass and whatnot. And that just means that they're expressing the oils over the cocktail. They're kind of like expressing it over the glass so that when you taste it, you're getting that aroma of citrus hitting you paired with the flavors of the drink as you sip it. So that's all it is. That's all there is to it. It's coffee Negroni. Yeah. Salud, guys. Cheers.
I literally thought that when people would do that, it was just like, I don't know, it just made it look
No,
cool.
it's for that pop. So when you get it, you're like, whoa, that smells like Papa Orange.
Bartender's cologne.
Very, very cool. So have any of your Negronis ever gone viral?
Yes. There's been a couple of videos where they have. I did one recently where it was coffee and it was also pineapple. So coffee and pineapple. Ooh. But the pineapple I infused with in the gin. So I did pineapple chunks with the rind and infused that in the gin for like a day. No, like 2 days. And then discarded that. And then you have now a pineapple flavored gin with the coffee infused Campari. And pineapple and coffee are two ingredient combinations that work really well together. You wouldn't think they are, but they actually do. And you're like, whoa, that's like the combo of each ingredient together is nice. So, yeah.
And what do we call that one?
Sometimes I can't think of a name, so I'm just like,
So you ChatGPT?
Pineapple coffee Negroni. There you go. Just straight to the point.
We don't even get super fancy, right? Sometimes the basics, like we're all tasting and they hit the nail on the head. How are we liking that one? Love it. Yeah, question.
Why did you infuse the Campari, not the gin in the room?
Because the Campari itself, what I like is that when you infuse and what I've noticed is that when you infuse coffee with just the Campari, it softens the bitterness because Campari is very bitter forward. So it plays well with the bitterness of the Campari. So you taste both, but you taste a little less bitterness of the Campari and you get a pop of that coffee in there. Ideally, you could do it with either or, but gin being something that's super botanical, right? And sweet vermouth being also something that's kind of like herbaceous, also botanical. For me, they don't play as well as they do with the Campari. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many fails, does it usually take before you, nail the beverage?
A lot.
A lot.
A lot?
Yeah. R&D is real. Yeah.
Especially you, because you get so creative at Little St. Healdsburg. I guess that's a good transition. Natalia.
Yeah, there you go.
For those of you who don't know, Little St. Healdsburg, amazing, amazing coffee shop and also place to go get some drinks and some apps. And you guys are also it's not a bookstore, but there's a downstairs part where you can lounge.
There's a lot going on in that space. We have a wine shop. We have a full cocktail bar. We have a kitchen. We open at 8 a.m. and goes until 9. So there's a lot going on all day.
Yeah, and your cocktail program, super, super rad. So Natalia had mentioned that she's now the assistant general manager for there and previously was running their entire bar program, was featured in Imbibe magazine. Her special cocktails got called out. And one thing that I think is super cool about Little St. Healdsburg is they have closed loop cocktails, which I'm going to let you share a little bit about closed loop cocktails.
Yeah, so we are very lucky to have a farm of our own. And I use that as my North Star, right? So that's where I get the inspiration for my cocktails. I go to the farm, I see what's growing, I see what's going to be available, talk to the farm manager, and that gives me ideas, and that's how I came up with this drink. And closed loop cocktails is something that we do at the restaurant. Usually the kitchen starts using that product that comes from the farm, and then whatever is left over or byproduct, let's say if they cook the beets, all that juice from the beets, they save it and give it to us, and then we get creative and make drinks with what they gave us. So the closed loop concept is they start, it goes to the bar, and then we give a full life to that product.
Zero waste. We love sustainability, especially earlier. A lot of us were talking about how we want to be very intentional consumers, right? And who we're supporting, what we're actually enjoying. So when I told you we were making something with cafecito and that you had the delicious 1738 Remy Martin, where did your mind go as you were trying to think about how do I craft something that's going to be enjoyable? Because I also imagine everybody has a lot of different palates, right? So how are you meeting all of these different tastes or thinking about something that you're trying to market when you know that people are going to like things from all sorts of different flavor profiles?
Yes. So first I went to the farm, like, okay, what's available and what can I pair well with that cognac? So when I saw the pears, that was, okay, I have to do something with that. And how am I going to incorporate the coffee? I thought of the bitters, right, that I'm going to use. The bitters have a little bit of the chocolate note, so that's going to pair well with the coffee. So that's where my mind went to.
I love that. So what do we have here? We call it Keep on Falling.
Keep on Falling, because I love that song. And fall is here. So I'm going to start the drink. I did not make an infusion for that, for this drink. I'm going to put 5 coffee beans in the tin. And I'm going to start adding cinnamon clove syrup. Super easy to make if you are familiar on how to make simple syrup. It's just water and sugar. Then you can add the spices that you have at home, cinnamon, clove, allspice, whatever you have. So I'm going to start with 1/2 ounce of this.
Do you have to mix it or shake it or stir it if you were to throw in, like, is it whole, like cinnamon canela
so
sticks, or is it?
That's a great question. You always want to make sure that you use the whole. Never do powdered cinnamon or clove, because that is going to create sediment in your drink. So what you want to do is you're going to boil everything together, let it simmer for 20 minutes, let it cool down, and then after 20 minutes, you will strain it. So you will have no residue, and it's going to be pretty clear like this. Next, I'm going to do some lemon juice, 3/4 of an ounce. And I'm using pear juice, but you could use apple cider that you buy at the store. It kind of has the same flavor profile. So I'm going to go 1 full ounce of that. And I'm going to add some bitters. I'm using Fee Brothers old-fashioned bitters, but if you have Angostura bitters at home, that will work too. So I'll go with 2 full ounces. And I don't know if you're familiar with St. George, but they are an amazing distillery. And when I'm creating drinks, I think about how am I going to add layers of flavor to that drink, right? So I have the pear juice, and I'm going to use a spice pear liqueur. Also thinking of layers of flavor. So they're based in Alameda, and everything they do is amazing. So 1/2 ounce. And last but not least, I'm gonna go with the Remy Martin cognac. I do love using cognac for fall cocktails. I think a lot of people go to bourbon or rye straight away, but this is something different that you can use to impress your guests. And it's really good to sip on too. So I'm going to go 1.5 ounce of that.
I can smell it from here. It smells fantastic. It smells like fall.
Elliot. All right. Everybody has shakers at home? Yes, great. Okay. So I'm just gonna put a little bit ice here and give this a good shake. 10 to 12 seconds. Make sure everything is nicely incorporated. All right, open. I am going to double strain this because I like to remove the icicles, and when you remove the icicles, you have more control on dilution. But it's not mandatory. You can, let me get this one. There you go. Large ice cube, but you can buy those trays for large ice cubes on Amazon, but feel free to use regular ice as well. And I'm going to double strain this over here.
I was curious to know what you meant by double strain, but I see the mesh now.
Yes. So that means that I'm using 2 strainers.
Makes sense.
And then this is optional. You don't have to do it at home, but I love foam. I think it adds a great texture to the drink. And when it's fall, I want something that is a little bit richer. So on the foam, we are 100% plant-based, and it was really challenging for me to make a foam that tastes good and has a great texture without using dairy or animal products. It took me a lot of attempts, but I finally came up with oat milk and Violife, which is heavy whipped cream, vegan. And I also added the spice pear liqueur, a little bit of the syrup, and a little bit of the pear juice in here, also thinking of layers of flavor. And I'm going to garnish with, let's do this first. A little bit of allspice, but if you have cinnamon or ground clove, whatever you have at home, I just like allspice because it's a nice blend. Okay, and then 3 coffee beans to garnish. That's the hardest part, guys. Garnishing.
Not making the whipped cream.
No, that's easy. And you can always buy it like ready. Just make sure you sprinkle the spice and you're gonna be ready to go. Okay, think that I was a little behind. Everybody has a drink. Cheers. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I'll let you go in.
Cheers. Yeah.
Do your travels ever influence the type of cocktails that you're looking to make and how you're looking to showcase them to the world or build them into bar menu programs or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when you travel is when you're really, just in California, by going to different restaurants, different places, California is so rich. People are so creative. Everything grows here. It's really bountiful. I learned about, this is citrus land. Like I've seen the most beautiful grapefruit, blood orange, Buddha's hands that you don't have even to travel far. So, but I'm from Brazil, so every time I go, I definitely keep my eyes out and try to do some research. What can I smuggle back, or or can I find something similar? But yeah, the more you travel, the more you learn and the more you see.
I love that. What have you been most inspired by in your travels?
People. Just talking to people and seeing what they do, what they like, and especially when we are at a bar, I feel that going to a bar is a whole experience, right? And I think that this is a little lost sometimes. Sometimes you can feel a little weird, this person is talking to me, especially after COVID. But I think that when we go to bars and we talk to people, what are you drinking? What is this? And, it's just fun.
I love that. Do your travels for either of you ever inspire the specific angle that you want to create, maybe in a fusion or even the presentation of any of the cocktails that you're producing?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, like what we're talking about, how popular going to Mexico is, right? Other Latin American countries. And, like when I go visit, I'm always thinking of like, okay, if I'm at a bar or if I'm at a restaurant and I see something on the menu that I'm not familiar with, then I tend to order it because I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. And then I try it and I'm like, wow, this is good. Like, thinking about, okay, how can I bring that back to, back home and make it into a drink, or for people online. There's a couple things that come to mind, like, for example, there's a drink that I had, I think it's called tejuino, I think it is. And it's like, what is it? Tejuino, right? Yeah, it's like a corn style drink. And in Mexico, they drink it with in a chelada style with a beer and whatnot. I'm like, I don't see nobody doing this back home. I was like, well, maybe I should do something with it and try it out and figure it out. Cause I'm like, but again, those things inspire. And then there's always people that are like, wow, that's cool. Like, I haven't had that, or, that's new to me. It's different from a michelada, or, so definitely always inspiration with traveling,
I love that. And I just learned a new word, so that's really cool. Tejuino.
Tejuino. I was making sure I had to say it. I was thinking in my head before you asked, I was like, I hope I don't butcher that.
Joshua also recently got to travel to Jamaica and help craft some bar programs for a bar out there. So for you, like, even when you're traveling to other places, like, where does your mind go on how you're trying to approach not only their culture and like honor their culture that they're there, with like cocktails that you're trying to inspire on, like how you're building out their program?
Yeah, I mean, I go in, when I go and do something like that, I always go in as just as an observer, a visitor. It's easy for me to be like, oh, okay, I've learned all this and I can take it somewhere else. But every place is different, right? Every place has a different culture. The workforce is different. There's places like Jamaica where they're an island, so they lack resources that we might have here on in the States, where we have access to things. But same when you go to Mexico, in different places. So the idea is, okay, well, let me observe, see, how the people are, how the culture is, and just kind of like break ground like that, and then from there figure out how I can be of help and service, and there adapt myself to their way of working with ingredients and things like that, and maybe approach it from a very from what I know, basically my knowledge, and share it and impart it in a very approachable, friendly way. But again, not taking away from what they have or don't have, just understanding that in that sense.
And you, my friend, just wrote a book.
I did just write a book.
Let's do drinks.
Yeah.
Talk to us more about that. How did you come up with the inspiration behind that? Also, just being able to craft all of the different cocktails that you threw in there. I think it said on the cover like over 100 recipes.
No, there are 75.
So,
a little over
only
75. Yeah. So I mean, with my approach, as I was talking about, like I like to so the book is broken up into 3 parts. So first part is an intro to home bartending or apartment bartending. And so it just covers the basics of the tools you need to know, basic ingredients and how to set up your home bar. And then the second part is classic cocktails you should know. Like my approach was, drinks that I felt like were really easy in the beginning. I remember actually, so this gentleman right here, Nathan Murphy, great friend of mine, known him half of my life, but he was actually the friend that I was with. I took a cocktails 101 class in New York, and I was with him and his wife, and that is the thing that got me into all this. So it's kind of like a full circle moment having him here. But that being said, he was the one that sent me a list of what I should buy in the beginning. So I went and bought a bunch of booze I knew nothing about. And with that stuff, I started crafting cocktails. So the classics that I leaned into are the classics that are in the book. In the first section. So, drinks like the old fashioned, Manhattan, Negroni, Martini, Margarita, drinks that I feel like you should have up your sleeve, for hosting and gatherings. And then the latter part is seasonal cocktails, some inspired by my travels, from bartenders that were, gracious enough to let me feature their cocktails, or just seasonal riffs on classic cocktails. Because again, like I really like to kind of make things approachable. I think that's what's unique about bartenders that I've and people that build menus for establishments. Like I've learned that you really want to build something that's unique, and that you as a consumer, you're like, man, I can only get that drink at this place. I'm going to go back over and over. At home, it really is about making something that is approachable. Right? I think I've said that word like 10 times since, so you guys are probably tired of hearing that. But like, again, I like to hammer that home because that's what I really lean into. So in my book, a lot of the drinks are just simple but elevated. I really lean into not using a lot of ingredients and keeping it, nice. That's the thing. And so kind of on the topic of being viral, I lean into a drink, not having a lot of ingredients, but being really beautiful, really flavorful, presentation being nice, glassware, garnish, nice ice, nice quality spirits that you're using. So, yeah.
Yep, the story beyond the product. Does anybody have any questions for these gentlemen? We've got the box back there. Oh, right away.
It was just in regards to the coffee that you guys are using. Are we using just any coffee that we, in regards to your products, everything, the drinks?
Today we use coffee de Colombia, but I would love to know if coffee from different regions, like, is that going to influence the type of cocktail that you're making or how that changes?
I would say like if in terms of like coffee cocktails, you have like classics like your Irish coffees or whatever spirit you're incorporating into that. You have your espresso martinis and stuff. I would say that like in terms of flavor profile, it definitely like influences it. Like if you're using the type of coffee bean that you're using, if you're brewing fresh espresso or if you're brewing a fresh pot of coffee, I think that like that influences a little bit. So I think that's more preference though, especially if you're making it at home. I would say like you can use whatever you have on hand. But again, if it's a small ingredient drink, then I think the better the bean, the better the drink. So I feel like they should put that on a shirt. Oh, actually.
The vanilla bean or, all this other different flavors, hazelnut. So just stick with the regular.
I think I personally, like I lean into that. My mom loves like flavored beans, she loves like her hazelnut coffee and stuff. I think like you can make, you can incorporate those flavors in a syrup. A syrup is a really great way to infuse different flavors into your cocktails, and it's low cost. When you go into a liquor store and you go into the liqueur aisle, you're already overwhelmed by what you see in the spirit section. The liqueur aisle, I feel like, is even more so. So syrups are a really great way to infuse that flavor. So like in regards to the bean, the coffee bean, I personally lean towards just like a really good coffee that, is going to elevate the drink.
I agree with him as well. Yeah, a really good coffee bean. If you're doing infusion, same. If you're doing espresso martinis at home and you have like an espresso machine and you can pull a shot of espresso, just a good quality bean. It could be local or something you buy at the store, whatever you have. But then the rest of the other flavors, right? Like you can impart different ways, syrups or whatnot.
And on the flavor topic, like flavored products, I would say just use what makes you happy. Like there's no rule. If you like hazelnut, the creamer, experiment. We do our espresso martini, Little Saint, has oat milk, so adds a really nice texture. So you could do the same. Like if you have your hazelnut creamer or whatever, just throw it in, shake it, see how it tastes. And after some attempts, you will find balance. And you're gonna love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Great question. Yeah, we had a couple up here.
Also,
We can throw those.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love that.
And then we'll get your question next.
Your attorney throw.
Also
Okay.
true, yeah.
Hi, y'all. So some of you influence and inspire others, but all of you are also inspired by things and places and other people. What are some of your inspirations when it comes to bartending and food?
When I moved here, I moved to New York, and I just recently went there and going back to the traveling, just being at places that have been there for a long time and seeing what mixologists are doing. It's really awesome to see how much work, craft, and thought it's into drink. So I really get inspired by these people.
I was super inspired by like bartenders. One, I thought like it was super cool. I thought like at the time when I started, I like cooking now. At the time, I was like, I felt like drinks was cooler. I felt like drinks was easier too, especially when I would have my friends come over and stuff. I thought like it was cooler than like making a mistake, right? So that was like something I was really inspired by, just like how you can serve people and I feel like there is something really special about having someone come over, you know, or for your spouse or your significant other or something like that, and you can craft them a drink. It doesn't take you like all the time in the world, but you know, there's a lot of thought and intention that go into it, and I think that is really cool just to see how that like lightens their day. And it's a really special moment. And I'm really big on the fact that like not all cocktails need to contain alcohol, right? So it's even like if your significant other is choosing not to drink or a friend is not choosing not to drink, it doesn't really affect the fact that like you can still put a lot of thought and intention into the non-alcoholic cocktails that you make as well. But yeah, so to answer your question, like just really inspired by service and hospitality, which I, you know, gathered from bartenders in the industry.
Yeah, and same to their point. I mean, if you think about it, like if you visit, you know, different places, right? And you step into a bar, and this is speaking from just my own being inspired, is that every bar, the dynamic is different. You know, the bartenders, the locale, you know, you can go to, you know, Tokyo, Japan, and it's going to be different from, you know, somewhere in Latin America, Medellin or, you know, Colombia or whatever. The dynamic is different. The locale is different. But at the same time, when you step in, you meet people, you know, whether they're locals or tourists. It's a place where people kind of unite and meet each other, share stories, things like that. And the dynamic is very different everywhere. It allows you to see a little bit of the culture in each place, in each country. And so when I started bartending, that kind of became my inspiration. And I said, well, you know, if I'm a bartender, I kind of want to continue to keep that inspiration. If I meet people that come in that are from out of, you know, Japan or, you know, another, Latin America or whatnot, and you know, they sit down in front of me, how do I strike conversation with them? How do I get to know more about them or them about me? We share stories, we connect. And yeah, I mean, over time in the last 4 or 5 years, you know, being within this industry, I've met so many people, I've made so many connections, learning, you know, and it's been such an inspiration where I'm like, you know, I don't think I could do anything else where I'm not constantly in front of people, learning from them, knowing them, getting to know who they are and whatnot. So, yeah.
Fantastic. I think we had one more question, and then I don't know about y'all, but I'm hungry.
Is there any drink that you can mix with red wine?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wine?
Uh-huh.
I think,
Wine.
yeah, a New York sour. I don't know if you've tried that. So it's basically a whiskey sour with a red wine float. So that one is the first one that comes to my mind. I've seen really fun versions with a clarified milk when you clarify the cocktail and then you do the float on top. Also, you can make syrup out of your leftover red wine. Yeah, you can infuse spices and it becomes really nice and rich. So there's a lot to do with wine, especially when you have that bottle that you forgot about it and it's been there for 7 days, or maybe you didn't finish it because, you know, life happens and you didn't get to the bottom of it. So yeah, you can definitely use red wine in drinks.
I would say aside from,
too.
oh, go ahead, bro.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say aside from, like, you know, you have your sangria, right? But there's a popular drink that's called, like, it's like the poor man's drink in a lot of countries. It's called Calimocho, which is basically Coca-Cola, Calimocho, right? Coca-Cola, red wine, right? Uh-huh. Now, obviously, I wouldn't use a good bottle of wine for that, but, you know, it's good. There's a version I made not too long ago from a bartender who had it, and it was like kind of the same, but they added a little bit of Fernet and Punta Mes, which is like a sweet vermouth, and they added something else. But anyways, it was super good. So it was like kind of the same concept, a little bit more versatile. But that's the one drink that comes to mind where, like, a lot of people in different places, they call it that, but there's other countries I know they call it a little something different, but, you know.
I love that question, though, because I think, especially in the wine industry, we feel like, oh, you can't destroy the wine like that. And it's just like, you can make serious wine, but you don't have to be so serious about how you enjoy it. And it's all about our worlds blending together, being able to have fun. I remember I crafted a drink at an event that I was doing, and it had Sauvignon Blanc, ginger beer, and then a little bit of limoncello. And when you shook all of them up, it was just like so bright and beautiful, and the citrus was so good. And it's one of those easy things that if you're not a huge Sauvignon Blanc fan, a little bit of that limoncello just added some sweetness to it that balanced out a lot of the acid structure in there. Not to sound like I know what I'm talking about, because I'm not even an apartment bartender.
I think you should start making a cocktail.
But I think it's really fun when you can play around with wine and showcase it in different ways. And as we're talking about how do you attract younger consumers into the wine industry, I think we have to get away from wine feeling so stale and wine feeling like it has to remain pinkies up. Like, have fun with it. And that is really what we're here to do. And I'm so excited that we were able to showcase these awesome beverages for y'all and step away from wine for a little moment. We'll certainly get back to a mix of everything, but huge round of applause to our incredible bartenders here, mixologists.